Yeah. Okay. Good evening. It is 6:00 p.m. This is the regular business meeting of Smithfield Township Board of Supervisors. We just joined in reciting pledge of allegiance. Thank you very much, members present, including myself, President Jacob Pryor, Vice Chair Robert Lovenheim. I don't know if Brian is on Zoom, but if he is, we'll wait to announce that. Solicitor Ron Karenstack, and our engineer John Tressler, as well as our town manager Julia Hyder. Brian, are you on Zoom or?
It might not be tonight.
Okay, well, if he makes it on, great. If not, that's okay. In terms of announcements, our budget meeting is October 18th. The next one after that is November 1st, both at 10 a.m. We'll get to adding other dates later on in the meeting. We do not have draft minutes for tonight, so I'll ask for a motion to table that.
Motion to table.
Second, I myself. Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. That's tabled. We do not have any public hearings or plans to act on. So we'll proceed to the solicitor's report.
You just stepped up here, Mr. Chair. Okay. For the suppose we're almost now halfway through October, but most of the time has been spent with respect to dealing with the pleadings that were required in the Shawnee Preservation Society lawsuit. And I've also been working on the finalization of the development agreement regarding the Shawnee Valley PRD. And I've also done some initial work and sent out the advertisement, in fact, today, for advertising next Monday and the Monday after for the Healthy Minds Drug and Alcohol Abuse Treatment Center. And with those couple of items, that pretty much takes care of recent events.
All right, thank you, Ron. Done.
Two minor items, I believe. One is at Airstrip Road. They encountered a sinkhole while putting in some utility lines, and when they explored, they found it deeply buried with a culvert pipe that was badly rusted, caused the roadway to, collapse. So they got an emergency permit from DEP to make that repair. They asked I take a look at it and for the township requirements as well. I'm scheduled to do that tomorrow. So we'll take care of that, and just to let you know, Healthy Minds responded to our first comment letter on their conditional use application. They addressed almost all of our comments, and we sent out a second comment letter in that as well. So,
Perfect. Thank you, John. Next is the consent agenda, which includes resolution number 533 for community investment, and we discussed last time, the purchase of a new controller for the light at State Route 447 and Interstate 80. Fire relief contributions, which is funds from the state that go directly to us, give to the fire company. And then the emergency payment to Bushkill EMS, which our budget finance manager Lucas D. Bartolo recommended. Do I hear a motion on the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve, and I'd like to also comment that we're very appreciative of the work that Bushkill Ambulance does for us, and we realize that it's a really part of the community.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you very
difficult
much.
to keep making these contributions, but we think it's well worth it, and we thank you for your efforts.
Thank you.
All right, with that, there's a motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Next is consideration to approve resolution number 534, the lot joined in for Lucid. John, I understand they met all the conditions.
yeah, it's simple 2 lots in a subdivision, previously recorded plan. They provided all the requirements, which is essentially a sketch showing what they wanted to do, and they joined their deed, which we kept the description of. So I think it's ready for the.
Perfect. Okay. All right, do I hear a motion on
Motion to approve resolution 534.
motion number 11, second by myself? Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, perfect. So that's done. Next is the consideration of ordinance number 246, which is Act 167 update.
That's what I'm
Right.
Yeah, sure, that was good. That was duly advertised, as per the advertisement and the open record on September 27, 2023. And it was rather lengthy advertisement discussing the fact that this is a whole new repeal under state ordinance that was prepared by Mr. Trussler and his organization. In a nutshell, I'll just read what the advertisement says. It's an ordinance that has general provisions, definitions, stormwater management provisions, drainage plan requirements, the schedule of inspections, fees and expenses, construction and maintenance of stormwater management facilities, prohibitions, along with administration of the ordinance. And there's also appendices attached with template agreements for stormwater facilities, maintenance and monitoring, drainage plan, stormwater design criteria, stormwater management district watershed map, along with other calculations with respect to storage of water. So that being said, this is again a repealed and now completely reinstated stormwater management plan for the township pursuant to Act 167. Since John was the author of it, if there's anything else he wants to add, he certainly may.
Simply that it was a model ordinance. It was vetted pretty completely by this board, by other boards within Monroe County, a lot of discussions. And the ordinance was modified and recommended based on a consensus of discussions in the surrounding communities and this board in particular.
Well, you did a terrific job. For the education of the public, it's essentially a 26-page ordinance that maintains our stormwater protections around lakes, ponds, rivers, creeks, that type of thing. to make sure that development doesn't encroach on them. And the newest addition to it is that there's a stormwater maintenance escrow fund, which allows us to work with anyone that would do any sort of improvements to maintain detention basins, pipes, those sorts of things with their funds, not yours. So no burden on us.
Brian Barrett, I just signed in. Having trouble with my phone.
All good. We just got to the Act 167 ordinance update.
Oh, good, yes.
So
Okay, Jacob.
that's where we're at now. So is anybody? Do I hear a motion to adopt ordinance number 246?
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 246.
Motion by Mr. Liebenheim. Do I hear a
I
second?
I'll second that motion.
Second by Mr. Barrett. Any questions?
You're saying this is gonna be a new ordinance, so anything plans being submitted now that might be under review would have to abide by these around the lakes and waterways?
Anything that exists, that was filed before this was advertised will not have to abide by that, but anything that is proposed after the adoption. We currently have, so the vast majority of the ordinance is the same. Difference is there's been recent updates to weather data from NOAA and other governmental entities, so there's no less protection by the current ordinance, so much as we have more protection with the new one that allows us to maintain the basins and whatnot. Before that was kind of done on the side, this formalizes.
What about the plans around, like, the developer, what he was mentioning before, the Shawnee Valley PRD?
If he has a new submission, that would apply, but he does not have a new submission, but I can let Ron or John discuss that.
Yeah, that's what I was just wondering with the solicitor's report, where you've been about the Shawnee Valley PRD reviewing stuff, or what does that mean?
I'm preparing the land development improvements agreement pursuant to the 2005 tentative plan that was approved by the township in December of 2008. So I'm preparing that agreement, and obviously whatever laws were in effect at that time would apply. Any laws after that would not.
2005, we're in 2023.
Yeah, I think that's backwards. That's the plan that they filed and the township approved.
The township approved.
Who filed that plan? 2005.
2005, probably Shawnee Wyndham.
Yeah,
It's not saying
SDI.
Wyndham was there yet.
It was, no, it was just SDI.
It was just that the Shawnee development.
We're awaiting the.
All new owners.
Correct, but we have to follow the laws that are in place, we can't just change based on, what is the law today, we have to follow a law that spells out pretty clearly the process for following an existing land development approval. It's not my idea of, that's great, but we have to deal with that according to the municipality's planning code. But we're awaiting, court decisions and court action on
Other
the challenge to that, correct?
Yeah, so I mean, if they have,
But they got away with this, they'll get away with the rest.
if they got what was said in the court. I mean, you can't go before with the court decision and approve something from 2005.
Well, we haven't approved anything. Everything that was approved in 2007. With the 2005, 2007 plan, and there's the court settlement, all of that is being dealt with. We didn't approve anything so far.
They should have done it then, if that's what they were gonna do.
We have.
And
nothing-
Expired, everything's expired,
That's,
so
that's
that's
not,
why I'm asking about the storm water, if that's gonna affect
I mean,
around the lake.
unfortunately, that isn't true, those.
Did they even have a storm
Did not
water
expire.
management?
They had all of that, but
167?
I'm gonna take comments on this ordinance, not that project, that's separate.
Oh, that's why I'm asking about the ordinance, that's all.
No, I understand.
My question about the ordinance, it has to do with how it relates to the timing of the Healthy Minds submissions. Have their documents been submitted prior to the, what was it, September 27th publication date? or after? Which side of the line will they fall on? Christine,
I don't
Barrett?
remember when it came in, my guess is it came in before the advertising.
Well, this started back in May, the process, but we didn't formalize anything until.
The 60-day hearing date would expire on
Right.
November 11th or something like that.
Correct.
On August 23rd.
There you go. Okay.
So then they would be on the old side.
They'd be on the old side, but I will say that the only noted change is the stormwater maintenance fund. The rest of it is generally the same. Smithfield has been ahead of the curve on the different buffers and whatnot. A lot of municipalities now are just bringing them to current standards. So the standard.
Right, but Smithfield has still improved their standards, they've raised their
Correct,
standards,
correct.
so.
Correct, and I will say that most of the waivers that have been granted on stormwater before the adoption of this ordinance momentarily. Were waivers because the old data was no longer current, so you needed a more modern thing, right? I mean, like the Trapasso plan and other recent plans, it was because the old data would have been worse. So, but we still need a waiver, better or worse. But that's where we're at.
Now, they're gonna have to, even when complying with the older stormwater management plan. The designs that they're going to have to submit and be approved by the township are going to be substantially the same, whether it be under the old ordinance or this ordinance.
How so?
Because the criteria has not changed for the technical design. The criteria, as Jake has pointed out, is that everything has been brought up to date to utilize the current rainfall information, which developers were basically using under the old criteria. They were asking for a waiver to use it. And it was always great. They no longer have to ask without waiver. And the only other substantial change is now there is a maintenance fund. Which, yes, they will not have to be subjected to that, but that has to do with the design criteria that they must adhere to in submitting their plans.
Alright, we have a motion and a second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye. I second it.
Number 246 is law. Next is, we're going to table the, consideration for the, loader for the Department of Public Works because we're waiting for trade-in information. But fortunately, we're looking to trade in the old one for about $15,000 and we're waiting for Caterpillar to come and assess it. Because this was, the 15,000 was with John Deere. So hopefully we get something soon because we're going to need this for the upcoming snow season. So there's no definitives on that yet, but the plan is to try to order it by November 1st. So we will hopefully at our next meeting be able to reflect on that. Do I hear a motion to table that?
Motion table.
Motion by
I'll
Mr. Lennon,
I'll second that motion.
second by Mr. Barrett. Question?
Jacob, may I address the board before you go into your noise ordinance?
We're gonna have to, I mean, we're almost done, just gonna go into the public comment, but is
No.
it about the loader?
It's gonna pertain to the noise ordinance, It's something that we need to know, these people need to know about the bike park.
You can ask a question, but let me just, let's vote on this, and then we'll get into that. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
You have something you wanna say about the north, before we get into the?
Right for me.
Yeah, I thought, I only heard you speak.
I took a tour of the bike park. I went on a Friday. Or if they weren't operating, I went back on a Wednesday when they were, I see why the problem is. Now, these poor people, and Ron, you should listen to me, because I'm curious about this.
I hear you, just because I'm looking at papers, it doesn't mean I'm not hearing you.
Robert Levenheim, that was people here and gave them permission. It is documented. There's people to back it. Ken Wolf has had it up to here with your interference.
Interference with what?
Gotta keep it his job,
What?
his job.
We interfering with a job?
You're stopping him from doing his job.
What did you say?
Yes,
Well, I won't comment on that because I think it's absurd.
well, I'm sorry, but I got proof, so you can say the other thing.
Everybody witness, you're running for office, you know, we deal with solutions here. You seem to come in here only dealing with problems and complaints. And most of it is things that you conflate out of nothing to be all of a sudden statements like, I'm doing his job.
If I can, are you people concerned about the noise?
Yes.
I just have one question.
You're making the wrong solution.
Robert, I don't think you were honest with the people. You spoke to this bike thing and said that they have emails. That you said that, yes, you approved the track.
I don't use the track.
It's in writing.
They asked you.
No one has the individual authority
They
to
have
approve any.
emails, I know, they have emails back and forth. This is my,
Are
I
you
was
talking
in the
about the bike?
office yesterday and I asked people in the office, yes, there are emails back and forth.
Not
I
about
don't know what the emails are, I'd like to see them, because is that delaying, did that put a wrench in things that are going?
You may be confusing with this, with the bike part is on River Road. I've never had any correspondence about the bike part that this
Excuse me,
fellow.
Julia? I asked you yesterday,
They say that
did he have a discussion with them, and you said, yes, they are in the emails, I want you to be honest,
No,
that's
I
all.
didn't,
I
I,
don't want
We had that discussion, yes, but I told you there were emails and they did not discuss the bike park or the motocross or the BMX or anything of that nature.
This gentleman is telling people he has proof of the emails that you have
there's
done
only
that, and I
two,
asked you that yesterday.
Sammy, there's only two conversations I've ever had about this with them. One was with his wife. I went up there myself on a Sunday and said, you're in violation of our zoning rules. You must stop immediately. You're in the R1 zone. You cannot run business.
He was shaking using
The
the
next
airport.
day, I had a conversation with Dave, my Michael, and I said the same thing. And I said, you better cease immediately, this is illegal. And he kept going on and on and on. This guy just doesn't get it. And then the same day is when Ken mailed the citation to him.
But
That's the
why-
only thing, and I never spoke to him since.
Why are you involved? Why are you Ken doing it?
Because it was on a weekend, and when it's on a weekend, I know that Ken
But
is.
they came to the office when you first told them, be all right.
First I heard about it was on a weekend, and I went up to Tammy's house, remember that? Sunday
I
morning.
asked you to come out, it was
And then I
on.
why? Because as a supervisor, I can at least be a witness of something and say, Ken, this is going on, I witnessed it, this is a complaint.
Ron, what does this do with you? You told Brian not to go up there. Remember last week?
Hold on.
That he shouldn't go
All
up
of
there?
these discussions took place before the enforcement notice was filed. None of us, to my knowledge, have been there since the enforcement notice was filed. Ron instructed that it was his recommendation at the last meeting, because we're already trying to take action on it. The 18th is the day when the 30th day expires, and then if they don't appeal it to the zoning hearing board, then we can take further action, but. It was recommended that we do not interact with them outside of, without council.
Let me answer the fair question. Obviously, one supervisor cannot speak for the board. Okay, the board is the board. However, we are hearing that the supervisor was saying, and specifically Mr. Lobenheim, that he never said these things. So we're at a loggerhead. I don't know how you solve that. He says no, you say yes.
Yeah, but you should
And
all,
what about poor Ken? I mean,
Ask you something.
you should all know
But
that.
he's saying he's not interfering with him. So how do we solve it?
for Ken,
Well, maybe.
but I mean,
Excuse me,
is that a problem for the board to interfere with the zoning officer?
what I call interfering that I do is this, when I get a complaint from a citizen, okay? I try to investigate, okay? Because I feel it's our obligation to see what's going on. And if I can see that there is a problem, I can be a witness, go to Ken and say, I'm making a complaint. There's a problem here, you've got to solve it.
And should done, not you.
Can I address something?
Good job.
Yeah.
My husband said the other week, why isn't the zoning officer here? The last we heard, he was supposed to, he would receive this citation by September 19th. I came in to get some stuff to the township and I spoke to Ken and he said he did not receive it until October 2nd.
Is there some communication going on wrong here?
Not on this.
He said he didn't receive it until October
I
second.
love this,
Listen,
because I sent to certified letters, these notices, so we can verify and use that to build.
Look at this.
Tammy, I know this. I was at your place on a Sunday. On Monday, I came in to see Ken myself.
No, you were on Monday. I never called until Monday because nobody's.
Well, remember, I was there.
Right,
on
you
Sunday.
were-
Right, on Monday, I went in to see Ken to tell him about this, and he said to me, I've already mailed him the citation.
You know
Because when I talked to Ken,
it. He said he did.
he said he never received it until the second. So now we're waiting 2.5 weeks.
And Ken never received it?
That Ken said, I said, and what was the date that, they received the citation? He said, October second, and I said, October second.
Was that because it was a return receipt that he got?
Yes, they're sent certified first class.
I think it would be good if we knew this, you know what I'm saying? That's my concern, I'm like, we thought it was 2.5 weeks earlier, now we're waiting.
But this is the US mail.
We invite you all over to our properties and listen to what we have to listen to
Well, I think we all know.
constantly. Constantly, you can't even sit outside your own home, my property value is going down because of this guy,
Oh, well, this is,
May I have your name, please?
Deborah Tower.
does this affect them if this goes to court? That Robert proved it? Here in the office?
Again, Robert saying he didn't do that, I mean,
Well, there's plenty of proof,
well, if there's proof, then I'll,
then we have a problem.
you know, we'll have to then address it, but right now, Robert's position is that he did not do that, and we have to take him at his word at this point.
Regardless of anybody's position, one supervisor can't unilaterally do anything.
I agree.
So no one,
He did
there's,
it.
it doesn't work like that. If I say I approve something,
Well, the other
that
problem.
doesn't, that's not going to do anything. If someone says, hey, can I do this? I'm like, sure you can. They should know better to talk to the board. You have to make an application for these things. They're operating in a legal business. They didn't ask any permission for any of that.
I
So
understand,
you can't
but
do a
you
lot
have
of
to understand who you're dealing with, these people do not understand.
No,
You
I did
understand?
that because he.
Is this gonna put a wrench in going forward? Are we gonna look for like 9 months from now?
No, none of any of this is going to cause a delay. That all of this
We
is
just
just,
don't know.
no, I do know. I am absolutely certain that this will not cause a delay in this. The only delay that this is causing is we're not talking about the
They
ordinance.
released up there.
That ordinance is worthless, and Ron has told you that, everybody told you
That's
that.
literally not true.
But no, right, we don't care about that, but we do care.
Come on, we're addressing like this, yes,
When you suggest rather than an audit, or are we supposed to go out with shotgun?
For
The
noise,
police.
Yeah.
come
What
on.
do you suggest? Don't say, come on,
Now,
what's the solution?
there's music at night, who's gonna go out, music on a weekend? I can tell you, Charlie Jones was mayor of East Rutherford, and he told me they could not enforce it.
Well, all we can do is try to enforce it. Make a better law and try to enforce it. I don't know anything else, you know.
But are you trying to cover up the mistake of what you did here?
What are you talking
This
about?
is,
You know, hold on, I wanna say something else. Julie and I have spent all the time since last meeting drafting 2 different versions of a noise ordinance that we are here to discuss tonight because we wanna know what you think and what you think will work. All right, this is wasting time.
Why,
I swear to you, I've never had any written conversation with this fellow about this subject, none. And any one of you can file a what is it,
Right now.
a right to know request and say, I want the emails between Robert Lowenheim and Michael Byrne regarding the issue of, what is it, the bike track, okay? See what you get.
Robert, I don't think you should go up there, he was out there.
It's not that good.
Don't you know better?
What?
To go up there and scream and yell, he's the upward.
hold on, this is not correct. Let's
You think I should have gone in on my own to tell these people to cease and desist?
Well, that's, it's not your job to do that.
Oh,
Not your job to do
it
that.
may not be my job, but it's my responsibility. There's a difference.
R1
And see, and desist.
That's what we've done. That's what enforcement notice done.
Where I guess a month ago, I remember we were at a meeting, they were talking about
they were advertising, selling
Right.
T-shirts.
And that's what.
Then take the lead up there and take the bikes.
And supposedly it's marked as being a non-profit place,
Yeah.
but yet they're charging people to use the facility. So if it's non-profit, then that money should be going to the shelters, whatever. He's not, should not be collecting anything.
No, I understand that, that's why we filed the enforcement notice that we did, but
And
that's
it's still an R1 zone.
correct.
Yeah.
Whether it's non-profit or
Make
profit.
sure they don't do it in my backyard.
It just shouldn't be there by people that live there. I'm sorry. Come over, you lived in my house for a week and listen to that. And see what you think. Trust
Your
me.
backyard.
That's-
It's right in our backyard.
I've heard it personally and I've seen all the videos, I understand, that's why we're working on this, and that's what we filed at it.
Their website states for $50.
Right,
I have the website
Yes.
on me that you've seen.
But it's posted at that,
In our
one of your gentlemen on the board posted that, said he was there, he thinks it's great, and it's non-profitable, but the guy's making money.
Plus he's charging for.
Doesn't
camping.
matter
if he's making money or not.
You're not allowed to do it.
They're allowed to keep your camper for free,
Right.
which means they must be charging for camping.
I saw them charge.
Well, he's gonna pay his fine when it's all over.
hope so.
Is Kim's job protected, even though he spoke out?
Is it protected?
Yeah, I mean, will they fire?
no, it's going to,
I don't know, which is the lowest.
hold on, hey, we're not going to get into private personnel.
I want to make sure, Ken, you stand up and tell the truth and not be fired by you two,
Of course,
okay? So I'm asking.
there's been no issue with that, believe me, anyone that talks to the guy knows he's
We
not.
live in the
afraid to say
United
that.
States, it's freedom of speech.
And I think, frankly, I'm tired of you writing ordinances, I think we need a professional, you're not.
Hold on, this, we're not, hold on. This is an abject failure of a discussion here. We're trying to actually work on this issue, and instead we're dealing with whatever you want to describe this. I'm sure everyone has some ideas.
You have a little guy there,
Hold on. You're not gonna, I'm not gonna let you continue to talk about his physical characteristics. I'm not gonna let you talk about.
Oh, he's 70-year-old woman.
Just one of them.
Right, right,
71.
Yeah.
Hold on. Yeah.
May we get an update on the progress of this, please, from the township? No update?
I'm reading.
Oh, Jim Booth? Booth.
The yellow.
Yeah.
I'm sorry this is turned antagonistic, yes.
Let's just have an
I
update.
invited most of you here and I said, look, we're here to try to figure out the best ordinance we can, that we can then craft by my notes, by Julia's notes, can craft into something that satisfies everyone.
No, it's already an
ordinance.
Hold on.
You don't need an ordinance on its own.
That's
The thing, it's a.
That's fundamentally false. By law, every municipality has to have a zoning ordinance in effect. We do. That is the basis of which we are enforcing that illegal business operation.
Correct.
So the discussion doesn't stop there, because it's not just this one place, it could be another place. Everyone cares about the neighbor and the nuisance.
So everybody.
I saw the insurance here, she cares about the music, for her, it's not necessarily the dirt bikes.
What
So
is
that's
the
what we're
current
pursuing.
ordinance right now?
There is no current ordinance beyond the zoning ordinance, so there's no uniform standard on noise. So that's what we're attempting.
See now,
There are state laws that regulate dog park and things like that, and the county dog warden is in charge of enforcing that.
Okay.
So there is
creating
a
a whole new
right,
ordinance.
right. Our goal is to satisfy a number of issues, which includes also fireworks and other things. You know, my neighbor likes to blast them off all the time, all day, every day. You know, there's a lot of these issues, they all need to be tackled by the.
Could I ask one quick question?
Sure.
You said I'm sorry, what is your name?
Robert,
Robert, I'm Debbie Cal. You mentioned that you're working on an ordinance.
Julie and I have spent the last couple of weeks going through all the ordinances we can find, doing research, and then drafting up possibilities for what the ordinance could be. Because remember, some of it is the noise that you're objecting to with the motorcycle. Some of it is loud music that's coming from bars or, private places. We want to have something that not only deals with all of that, But we've got to take it outside of the zoning ordinance, so it's a separate ordinance, because in the zoning ordinance, we run into what we did here. And we'll ask the site for God, all right, it's got to sign by, certified mail, the guy's got to receive it. Then he has 30 days to appeal to the zoning hearing board for a hearing. If he does that, then you have to wait till the zoning hearing board makes their decision. Then Ken can start citing him again, right? And taking him to court. But this is a long process. If it was outside the zoning ordinance, just a standalone ordinance, we could say, okay, you can cite him and say it's a violation this minute. You can cite him for every time that he does this. You can take him to court immediately. It's much, much easier.
But if it is zone R1 residential, how can he even have it there?
Well, that's what we're enforcing on that. So right now, there is not a noise standard. What we're enforcing on is that he has an illegal business.
Who's gonna
So
enforce it?
attorney,
And if you go for a noise ordinance,
And
I mean, I know you're going for more than just that,
right, but then we don't have to worry about R1, R2, and say, you're in violation.
anyway. So like right now, we know of 3 municipalities, Chestnut Hill, Coolmont, Hamilton, that have standalone noise controls. And then everyone else except for Stroud does it just through the zoning ordinance. The only one that does it in both the zoning and as a standalone is Stroud. So we're aiming to combat it with both and be that, because whether or not this is stopped, there's another, if someone else were to go in there, we want to cite them not just on the zoning, but because of the noise that they're generating. We want multifaceted approaches, and each.
We have constables you can send up there?
the guy is denying, I mean, in the beginning, he said he was putting the traffic for his son,
Correct,
and now it's a business.
correct.
So how did he get this far?
Because he's arrogant.
Because he's a scofflaw, doesn't care.
And he does what he wants to do.
Mr. Vaughn.
We have a lot of people around like that, trust me.
I just want to summarize. So just in a nutshell, we're waiting for the return receipt 30 days for the appeal process, assuming, right?
Well, get the return receipt now.
So if it was on October 2nd, we have 30 days.
Fine for every day.
Will there be posted property to at least the booths or someone, so we will all know when to be at that zoning hearing board? Because it seems like it's not gonna happen. because no steps have
Absolutely,
been-
we're gonna send you letters.
Okay.
We'll send you letters and emails.
Go up there and send him a fine every day he does it. Let it keep building up.
Is he still operating?
Okay, what are your?
Yeah, they were over there today. Today they were.
Yes.
Can you get to the ordinance?
Yes, so there's a couple, and before I let Robert and Julia discuss what they researched, we used a number of different models from other areas. The state of New Jersey has a very good one. We've looked at that. We also compared all the other municipalities, the other 19 municipalities in the county. Thank you to Attorney Kidwell for that knowledge. And then we have some discussion based on notes that Robert made from discussions with y'all, there's other individuals, other noise complaints, because it's been more than noise, it's also light and different things like that in some areas. And then we had the one that Julie came up with also based on PSAT's recommendations, because as I'll let Julie explain in a second, there are 2 types of noise ordinances. There's plainly audible and there's true noise. So I will let you explain that, and the goal of tonight is to get some more feedback in discussing some of these concepts. So we can have an actual draft ordinance that we will then publicize and share with everyone additional feedback on. And then that we review by county and the township planning commissions for their input as well. So
Do you have to put this like in the record, or do you have to let the whole township know? Is that what I'm saying on what you're going towards?
yes, so once we have an actual draft, based on, there's a couple key questions that have to be answered tonight. Which direction to go, or to go both ways, and then the types of things that we'd be regulating and the means of enforcement, which is the key difference. True noise, that you explained, is measured by a meter, plainly audible. Anyone would be able to attest to that in property line. So I'll let her explain that, but yes, the goal will be, as we've done with other land development projects. We've been making a page on our website that's dedicated to everything that we get on those projects. So we're going to have a special page dedicated to this that you'll be able to see, and we'll email folks once it's updated and whatnot.
Jacob, I get music from Shawnee on a Tuesday nights when they have weddings. Do I call you to go down there and cite them?
We're gonna discuss that. Julia, I'll let you explain the 2 types and why PSATs recommends both, and then We'll get into the rest of that.
Bottom line is they
Can I ask a left field question?
One left field question, then Bill actually.
Thank you.
Ma'am,
Is it-
sorry, may I have?
Christine Carroll. Does he have a registered nonprofit organization or a
Not that I can-
business
not that I can find.
registration with the state of
He's
Pennsylvania?
LLC, he's not 501c.
Was that the just answer?
Yes.
Okay. And so he's collecting money, and has anybody contacted the Pennsylvania State Department of Revenue?
As far as I know.
Or if he's operating a business illegally and not paying taxes, they'll go pay him a visit.
Well, this is different, right? So like. And that's always an option, I leave anyone to do that.
So we should.
Our job is to first
Get
obviously.
along with them, that's what we're told.
Okay, go ahead, Julia. Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, actually just making sure all this goodness gets covered.
So, noise ordinances, they can be very, very complicated. But what PSAS recommends, is going.
I don't even know what PSAS is.
Yeah, so the Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors is the organization that combines all of the different township officials into one spot. It's a point where we can go model ordinances, if we have questions about the second class township code, like they are our go-to people for that. So they dropped a presentation and actually have a few things in their newsletter that we looked through. PSAS suggests a 2 ordinance approach for going after noise problems. The first suggestion that they have is something called a plainly audible ordinance. Now, what that means is that you have a right to enjoy your property, and if you are able to hear something plainly, it can be music, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be able to understand the words that are being said. If there is noise on your property line coming from another property line that you can hear, with exceptions, you are allowed to take enforcement against that. Some common exceptions related to that include things like running your lawnmower. Any emergency vehicles are accepted from that. If you're doing home repair, obviously you're allowed to work on the property at the time. But the idea with the audible ordinance is to prevent anyone from rolling a boombox out onto their lawn, turning it up, and listening to it at full blast for 8 hours a day. It's not very neighborly, but unfortunately, we're not allowed to enforce neighborliness, so we need to do that through the clause. The second kind of ordinance that they recommend is a true noise ordinance. Now, what that means excuse me, is that they are interested in the decibel level of the sounds. So I don't know how many people are familiar with decibel levels, but it's on a scale, 10 decibels, I believe, is the sound that your eyelashes make when they blink, whereas 140 is the sound of a firearm discharging. Every 10 decibel levels that you go up doubles the sound of the noise. So quiet conversation might peak around 50 decibel levels, but you're gonna have a lawnmower at around 60 or 70, depending on the type of lawnmower you've got. What a true noise ordinance does is it aims to enforce the sound limits coming off of the property. These types of ordinances are historically difficult to enforce when they hold up in court, because in order to be able to operate a sound device in such a manner that it will hold up in court, you have to be certified in the usage of that machine, and it needs to be an expensive enough machine that it can be calibrated on site. So it's a bit of a lengthier process, but for example, anybody doing quarry work is required to have some sort of sound operator on site to monitor those levels, and they're required to be certified and have the certification and the learning in order to be able to stand up in front of the court and say, yes, we can do this. So obviously that part is very expensive and goes forward, which is why PSAS recommends these 2 different things. The plainly audible ordinance draft that we've got at this point right now is a steal from the lawyer and the law firm that did the presentation to PSAS. The true noise ordinance is kind of amalgam of a bunch of different ordinances around. So that's kind of the 2 facets that we're looking at. As you know, 2 different tools in the township device to combat this problem. Whether it be people riding BMX bikes, whether it be extremely loud karaoke on a Friday night, whether it be somebody constantly revving engines for no good reason on their own property. But hopefully having these two different approaches will allow the township a little bit more leeway to enforce. Like Robert said as well, when you have noise ordinances in the zone, what we're required to do is very similar to what Ken did, where he goes out and he gives the enforcement notice. And if they receive that enforcement notice, the township cannot take any action for 30 days. We're in that 30-day waiting period right now, and we can't do anything. Our hands are tied, which means that you guys have to suffer through this noise at that time. If we're able to enforce something like the audible noise ordinance, what we'll be able to do is have any township representative, depending if they want to be a code enforcement officer, whomever that the township appoints, they can go up and say, hey, you're in violation of this ordinance, here's a fine. And we can immediately start to fiscally impact whoever is making the problem. Will it stop? Immediately if we start handing out fines, obviously we can't say that's very much going to depend on the person that we are trying to take the enforcement action against. But it's another tool that can operate much faster than a noise ordinance that would be shifted into the zoning.
So do we call you and Robert as our noise police at nights and on weekends?
We have not yet discussed who is going to enforce any of this. So the first plan that we need to do is figure out how we are going to create these ordinances and craft them, and from there figure it out. If it gets to the point where we are having a lot of noise problems, maybe we need to hire a second codes enforcement officer. Maybe
Get more money.
regardless, if it's important to the township and we need to make your guys' lives better, maybe that's something we consider. Maybe we have Ken shift Ken's hours around. He won't be available during regular business hours and we'll have other issues. But it's something that we can consider. But before we take that step and do any consideration for who's going to enforce this and blah, 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 we first have to figure out the rules and the regulations that are going to be enforced. Christina's going to have a question.
Are there fines for operating a business in the wrong
So that's through the zoning ordinance. which is
Right,
what
but
we're doing right now.
is a business that is operating illegally allowed to be fined for doing so?
Yes, the
Okay,
amendment.
so why aren't we starting there? If
We
fines
are.
are gonna be
That's
answered, then
already-
we
That's
already have a finable offense.
And that's already.
And this just seems to be kicking the issue down.
No,
Kicking the
that's
can
not
down
how it
the
works. So,
road.
so unfortunately, the way that the ordinance is built and any zoning related offense, it does function that way. It presumes, like any criminal charge, it presumes the innocence of the person who's accused. So they get that 30-day window to appeal. We prefer to abridge that. That's why we're, whichever we adopt, it will abridge that process. We're not looking to kick the can. This is the unfortunate circumstance when it's only zoning related. This is noise, so it'll be separate, because it could be an illegal business, it could be your neighbor who's crazy,
Or a gas powered lawnmower.
Yeah, sure,
Right,
sir.
right.
Are these fines significant enough to deter this behavior? And would that also be, cover fireworks?
Sorry, I'm sorry, can I get you in here?
My name's Glenn Wilka. Wilka.
We would set the fine. We would set a schedule of fines.
Correct.
What will the fines be?
Well, if you're asking me what I'd like, $1,000 for the first violation. I don't think it would be that, but probably it'll be something that's an escalating scale.
Right.
What are the fines for?
Excuse me, Jacob, is Ron at this meeting?
Yes.
Really, Ron, I think a lot of this stuff really should be referred to you. I mean, holy God,
Well, I appreciate that, Ryan, because I do not forget that I'm here because of your beneficence way back when. But I'm not an elected supervisor. It's not my job to be a supervisor or to be a core supervisor or to adopt policy. I can certainly make recommendations with respect to these items, and I have some thoughts about these ordinances that have been passed around and that I've read. But I believe that the issue is do we want to do a standalone ordinance? And I believe it just moves faster. Because if you do the zoning ordinance, which is fine, and if you send what's called an enforcement notice, they used to be called cease and desist ordinances when I started 48 years ago. And no one appeals that enforcement notice, well, then you could go right to the district judge and start issuing citations and fine them. But if they appeal that notice within that 30-day or 15-day window, whatever it is, now it starts the process of the zoning hearing board, which requires a hearing, people to come and testify, and certainly it would be wise for the individuals here in the room to be present at that hearing to make sure that the zoning hearing board hears what they have to say. And those hearings usually can access his own lawyer, if you will, and he would then call you as a witness and testify. The township can certainly appoint me to go to the hearing and act on behalf of the township and do that, as I did with the short-term rentals, in which I was successful on in the appeals courts. That'll be up to them, but right now, we're at the very beginning stages of this. And you know, if I'm using a baseball game since we're in the playoffs, and I don't mean to say that this is a game, this is serious business. But, you know, we're talking about what happens at the 8th or 9th inning. Right now, we're just coming out of the locker room.
Let me describe another possible approach to this, because I did a lot of research with townships, and one of the things I came upon that I thought was interesting is a formula that the state of New Jersey in a state committee put out as a template for all municipalities who were looking towards a noise ordinance. And what they did was interesting is they said, let's measure it not at the source or the property line, let's measure it at the place where people are complaining. So in other words, it would go to your property, and on your property, they proposed a formula they call it a 2-10-30 formula, which is this, that in the sound office or wherever it is, has to have a meter, and it's got to be what's called an ANSI approved meter, which is American standards of what the meter should be. And they have to take a number of sound readings at 2 minutes each over a period of at least 10 minutes. Then they have to be on the property for at least 30 minutes to see if there's a recurrence, whatever it is. And the decibel level that they have, there those samples of those 10 minutes or 30 minutes, whatever it is, can't be over a certain amount. And in New Jersey, they say 65 decibels. 65 decibels, from what I've read, is about the noise that a washing machine makes. I would say 60 decibels is more reasonable. And so that measure becomes what they use as a basis for citing somebody for excessive noise. And this would apply to music and speech in outdoor venues or indoor venues or outdoor concerts, unless they're granted a special event permit. When we talk about what if there's a wedding or something, well, that permit would be dependent upon somebody going around and getting the neighbors to agree that it's okay to do that. It would apply to excess engine and motor noise, including ATVs and so forth, everything. Even cars lacking mufflers would be always heard. It would apply to construction noise from outdoor construction sites and zones adjacent or nearby to residential zones. And even with outdoor music, I'm proposing prohibition. This is beyond what I just said, which is outdoor music cannot be between 10 p.m. and 10 a.m. That means nothing between those hours. Construction can only be between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. Monday through Saturday in residential areas, prohibited on Sunday. Car alarms that do not automatically shut off in 5 minutes are prohibited at all times. So it's pretty simple, and it's based first on that New Jersey formula, and secondly on a group of prohibitions which say It doesn't matter how much noise they're making, if you have music outdoors between, what was it?
10 p.m.
10 p.m. and 10 a.m., it's outlawed, you cannot do it.
Is every time somebody breaks the law, are we gonna make a new zoning rule? That's what I want, and this guy is breaking the law, we don't need a zoning rule.
But what would you propose, because we don't
I would
have, we
propose
don't have a
to
law.
send the cops up there and have him arrested.
Robert,
We do not have that authority.
Robert, you listened to what you said, all this.
Hold on.
Mumbo
You taking
jumbo.
in all what you said? You're almost turning us into a police state.
Hold on. I don't understand. Hold on. You know, there are areas in New Jersey that are just as conservative, some parts of Monroe County.
Well, this is-
You know, it applies, people, regardless of where they wanna live peacefully and
All right.
enjoy themselves.
Let me ask you this, to everybody here, you wanna hear hecklers, or you wanna talk about which of these or what you like? and then
We want
you
to
can
do stop on the
together?
road.
Excuse me, you're out of order, what
Yeah.
would you do to craft something that works for you?
I'm out of order.
Robert,
doing a good job, all of you, and we're getting somewhere, we're moving ahead, it seems like, which is good.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate
All right, I'm not sure if I'm understanding, but I don't like any of it. I don't like the New Jersey one because then you have to have somebody authorized there, right?
Correct.
That's gonna be money. I don't like where you could just report because you could not get along with your neighbor and they report you on anything. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's just my
Well,
thought.
credibility is an important aspect of this too, I mean, you know, like.
all summer.
I'm sorry, but I think credibility in this area has kind of gone out the window anymore. There's not a lot, I mean, there are some people that don't follow rules or that are. You know what I'm saying? So I'm thinking, it's just.
If one can tell me that something is too loud. I'm going to, you know, feel an instinct to go see it myself. I'm not gonna say the first time someone does something, slam the brakes
But
on.
it's usually on weekends, the music.
And that's why we're trying to, you know, figure that out.
But you're saying we have to hire somebody else.
Not necessarily. She was throwing an idea.
So in a conversation I had with Ken once, he said that when people call for noise violations in Smithfield Township and they call the state police or whatever, the state police almost say, I'm sorry, there's nothing in your township we can do. So would this allow me or Tammy or whoever to call the state police, and then at least I have a veritable witness on a Saturday evening or a Sunday morning or whatever, that's not a township.
If they're nice, the state police would be able to do that. But state police, they're not charged with enforcing local ordinances.
Okay,
but are we doing this because of the mistake made with the R1 zoning, Robert? I mean, is this supposed to cover?
This has nothing to do with it.
This is crazy.
And this has nothing to do with that. We're moving on.
Okay, I
Then
did
for
call
us.
the state police and I asked them if there was a local municipality ordinance, if they would enforce it. I specifically called for that reason. And the woman that answered at first said, it depends, and then later, immediately, she said yes. So I think that is questionable. I've called the state police numerous times. Sometimes they will go out, sometimes they say they won't go out.
Right, there are some general things, they of course have discretion, but there are some general things that, yes, they would enforce. But generally speaking, there's 20 municipalities in the county that are covered by Troop M. Each of us has a separate code of ordinances, I don't have one in front of me, but look this thing, so the state police doesn't necessarily go out for any call like that, if it's something egregious or happening, yes. And we've worked with them when there's like been illegal parking on the side of state roads and things like that. But fundamentally, when it's something that is the responsibility of the municipality, the state police does not do that.
I mean, are you willing to sacrifice people's lives? Because the state police are so busy, our crime is terrible. But you want them to go chase down a hornblower.
Alright, hold on.
I do like the,
I'm
I
not dealing
like
with
the,
that.
I just wanna say, I like the plainly audible part of the noise ordinance. I think that sounds like that could be doable.
that first one.
The second one, Well, the decibel would be good also, but I know that's a little more involved, but the
Correct.
truly audible, because I hear that music from the saloon every single weekend. And, you know, but the 60 for the 210/30 can't be over 60. For my house, I have a decibel reader and it's in the 50s and I can hear.
Sure.
And I can hear the words to the music and I can hear the crowds there too,
Right.
when they're hooting and hollering. So, I mean, that's a real
And our
hum.
goal is to counter that, but unfortunately, when it is a bar, there's more things to counter it than just zoning and a nuisance ordinance. It's also the fact that their liquor license could be jeopardized by things like that. So we've worked with the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board when it deals with issues
Well, I'm
like
working
that.
with them too.
Yeah, yeah,
So, I'm trying all angles on it. So,
absolutely.
yeah, I'm just
And
saying
that's why
that.
we're throwing out all concepts here, because there's a number of ways, some things from other areas might not work, some things might.
Well, and I talked to Robert about this before, because with that 210/30,
Yeah.
he said it would be, not allowed from, what was it, 10 AM to 10 PM?
Today.
No, that's beyond 10 AM, 10 PM.
Right.
But, I mean, I told Robert there should be parameters around that, because then actually you could be playing the music from, what is it, 10:01 AM to 9:59
But if
PM.
they can only, if it on your property, a meter showed it was no more than 60 decibels, then it would be okay. If it was more than 60 decibels, even during those daytime hours, it's not allowed.
Correct.
And
Well, when I was a reader, it's in the 50s and I can hear
it's not,
it. It's in the 50s with my.
We don't know how it's certified, so that's the issue, right? So then you might get different readings based on a different device, so that's why there's only certain ones that are certified, and that's the debate.
Yeah,
of whether or
But
not
when
we
you
should go
can
back.
hear it, like you don't really care about the decibel reading, you're peacefully
Right.
quiet is.
No, I understood. Well,
So,
that's
I
why
mean,
it's-
that's why I like the truly audible, I think that
Yeah.
sounds like that could be more doable to me, I think.
But this is America, do you want people looking down your throats all the time?
Well, when you're having it every single.
That's an exception, but I mean, I think you've gone overboard.
Oh, we're taking reasonable comments over there.
Okay,
Go
well,
ahead, Liz.
that's about all I have to say about that. I mean, well, my husband did mention at the last meeting, and I don't know, it seems that people are shrugging it, but I really do think that you should start introducing quiet zone areas. Put up signs by hospitals, schools, parks, and maybe even billboards saying, turn down the volume. Or respect your neighbors, respect wildlife, because in the parks, the wildlife, they're dependent on their hearing for their survival, even the predators and the prey.
Right.
And it's affecting, this
Sure.
music and all this noise is really affecting, of not only the people, but the animals, the pets, the fireworks that are affecting them. And, well, I feel like I've just had it with,
Many
cars, motorcycles, it's just,
Tammy,
too much.
So let me ask about the decimal thing. You would have to purchase a decimal thing, is that it? Or you would have to like contract somebody?
no, we could, they cost about $350. We can buy it.
Right.
But if somebody here would have to be certified to do it.
Correct.
My view, and I'm just expressing it, is that I think all of us should be trained on it so that if the zoning officer is available, we're designees to be able to run it. We would have some kind of certification that says we're able to, so that means you get him or us, somebody's gonna come up
Well,
there.
then that would mean we have to get everybody a decimal meter.
Well, no, just,
Well, you wouldn't say, oh, can't make it, here, you carry it.
Well, there's no one's gonna hold on to it but we have to discuss further whether or not that's the approach that.
Right, I just want to know, like, what you're talking about, do you buy decimal meters or whatever?
Yeah,
Okay,
we would keep it here, I mean, like our roadmaster or our director of public works, when there's like a road issue, like he still comes here to get his, truck, it would be the same thing.
okay,
Like, so that's the thought.
and remember when I say, we would do it, this is small township. We don't have a lot of people here. We have to pitch in and do things.
I think everybody's worry is the loud stuff happens on the weekend. That's the big thing, is the loud stuff, and not everybody's gonna come out on the weekend, or like she said, 11 o'clock at night.
And that's why there's a personnel rate to it too, because we might have to adjust hours or have. Some other means of addressing it on the weekend versus during the day, and that's a valid point.
The one thing I can tell you about a meter, which I've been resisting because it is difficult, is that the last time we talked about this, the last meeting. What we were told by Ron over here is, without a meter, it's very difficult. You have to have some standard when you're going into court. So that's why a meter seems like, as much as I wouldn't want it if we didn't have to have it, seems a reasonable thing. And the other thing is that I'm hoping tonight we can get some consensus here so we can move forward and draft an ordinance that we can pass, because none of us want this to go on. We want this over with. We want to get a law. And to get a law, we have to draft it, and then we have to advertise it publicly, we have to hearing, and we have to pass it. So it takes a while. I'm as frustrated as you are. I wish we had the right to say, you're out of business, get out of the town.
But can I ask Ron, I thought you said at the last meeting that you went through this procedure in another township, am I correct?
Yes.
And what in your opinion, what worked best as far as?
Decibel meter, run by someone who's certified. At the source of the complaint on your property, the 2, 10, 30 seems just fine. I'm not crazy about the plainly audible. I mean, I've done this work enough to say if I was a lawyer, I'd attack that all day long. A person of normal hearing is plainly audible. What's normal hearing? How are you gonna prove what's normal hearing? You already have built issues with respect to the plainly audible. Is plainly audible an easier standard to try to meet? Sure it is. But I think that goes down in court. And what you do is you go to court, Louis, doesn't now empower that person, give them more validity to know that their position is right and you're wrong. You want to go to court and win. You don't want to go to court.
Ron, have you tried any important one?
On the noise ordinance in Mount Bethel,
Yeah.
we had one hearing and then the fellow withdrew his appeal and it was done. But again, I've been in Upper Mount Bethel for 26 years. And there are people that have complained about noise, etc. And the supervisors have said, we can't enforce this ordinance.
It's a free world, I mean, you can't.
And then, it doesn't make people happy, but, I don't need to do what the supervisors tell me to do. They want me to run the caterpillar, but
It doesn't abide by the law by not doing it, he's not gonna abide by the ordinance law either.
It doesn't mean we can't do nothing.
I've been to other township meetings, like up in Paradise and stuff, because that's where I'm originally from. And their noise ordinance is like, no noise like that after 10 o'clock
Right.
at night. But as far as to 10 in the morning, I mean, you have men getting up that wanna mow their lawns, so they can get done and enjoy their family for the weekend, stuff like that. So I don't think like those type of noises should be put in there. I mean, that's normal. You gotta do, maintenance around your house,
Or before it gets too hot.
Right, before it gets too hot in the day. So I would, at 10 o'clock at night, that would be fine, but I think it should be a little bit earlier in the morning because people like to get up and get their stuff done. So by, 10 o'clock, 2 hours later, they're in the heat of the sun,
Right.
So we can exempt lawnmowers, maybe leaf blowers, I don't know.
Well, one ordinance that was passed around has 60 exemptions that are pretty thorough with respect to things that are not gonna be part of the ordinance. It basically deals with house maintenance, people working and those kind of things.
I think the biggest thing.
We don't know what's wrong and right.
Noise from motor vehicles such as we're talking about with this, this blight on Mountain Manor.
Right.
Excessive noise from bars or some venues, resorts, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And third is construction. I mean, I live in an HOA, and they have a rule. You can't start construction before 7, you must, I think, and by 6 or 7, you cannot do it on Sundays. We don't have that in the township, but it seems like it's a good plan, right? So you can't start building a house next year.
Also, when the camp comes up, nothing against the camp, but I mean, sometimes I remember 1, 2 o'clock in the morning when I'd have to get up at 3 to go to work, they'd still be up there on megaphones. And I couldn't keep my windows open in the summertime. I even called the police one time and they went, well, there's no ordinance, so there's nothing we can do.
What about regular motorcycles? You gotta chase them down the road?
No. We're dealing with you.
Well, I talked about the motorcycles, I'm talking about the motorcycles that take off their mufflers or they modify them.
Regular street motorcycles.
Well, that motors, from what I have read, when you get a motorcycle from a dealership, it purrs like a kitten. But, you know, a lot of people modify it and they just, you know, are going down and making waves.
The first thing they do.
So, you know,
And you've been
and
been
boom
through
cars
this.
too, you know,
Right.
same thing.
you've been through this a long time, that's why voluntary, cooperation and so forth. I mean, what do you think? What would you want from your property? Of all the stuff we've said, what works for you?
Well, I mean, I don't know, Ron's saying the decibel thing is the best, but, I don't know, I still like the truly audible. I mean, Ron, I wanted to ask you, you said that it only actually worked once, your, noise ordinance, but what about, did it work as a deterrent?
I would say to you that I'm not sure, and I guess that's a good lawyer answer in the sense that the people who come in, you know, not Bethel where I'm a solicitor, are complaining about noise from like a park or whatever, or something like that, or noise about motorcycles and things like that. And they come and they complain and the township doesn't do much and they don't come back again. So has it solved anything or do the people just say, they're not gonna do anything, why should I go back there and waste my breath? You know, I'm not certain. The problem is you can't legislate good manners, you can't legislate people being good neighbors, you can't
Well-
legislate courtesy.
No, I agree, but sounds like.
That's what's difficult,
I
that's
know
what we're
that,
trying to do,
But,
and
but I
if
think
this
you-
knucklehead doesn't have consideration or manners or
I
courtesy.
agree, I agree.
What are we gonna do?
But I think, you know, it could work as a deterrent if the neighbor goes to another neighbor and talks to them, or a business, sometimes it could work.
I think something should be in effect, so at least people know out there there's gonna be a problem. I think this hearing with the zoning hearing board should proceed if he's taken an appeal, and hopefully the township will prevail there. I mean, I don't know anything about the case because that's not my focus in the sense that that's a whole different branch of government, you know, like when we went to 8th grade civics, legislative, executive, and judicial, that's sort of the judicial branch. But if he's operating a business in a residential zone.
I think it should be after 10 o'clock. Would be
I don't know how he dodges that bullet, but I guess he has the right to have a hearing.
Yeah.
Well, look at Robert,
It sounds like I'm hearing at least consensus that there has to be fees that are deterrent, significant, the current fee is $500 per violation. This could be a daily thing, much like or a successive thing, much like our nuisance alarm ordinance. Which has deterred, you know, the additional nuisance alarms that have been, you know, dragging our emergency responders out unnecessarily, so. It's about that, it's about some basic things like construction, loud music. You
Besides
understand?
the noise ordinance, which I think is, when we get that resolved, I think that's gonna be great for the town,
Yeah.
for sure. The R1 though, in the business,
Correct.
as far as the local business.
Hello, Jacob.
The only business,
Listen, the planning commission has it on their agenda to review noise ordinance tomorrow night. Maybe it'd be worthwhile to have, some people come to that and hear what they say.
sure, absolutely.
Maybe you should start finding the individuals on the motorcycle.
So is the R one
Along
now,
with the
is
guy.
what we're gonna pursue, besides the noise ordinance, it's gonna take a while to probably put that together.
That's
And I think you
important.
guys are, yeah.
Well, I
sounds
just,
great.
I just said that they, it is on their agenda, so there'll be a little back and forth there tomorrow night also. Maybe pick up.
They have, both the one I did and Julie did, so, hopefully they'll have some interesting discussion on it. So it would be.
So to clarify your question,
Yes,
Ken's enforcement notice is the action that the township is taking to prevent, to stop an illegal business in an R1.
The only business.
we move forward, that's all, because the noise,
Yeah.
that's everybody wanting to hear,
The
but
R1 business, that's already in the pipeline.
The only business that's legal in R1 is what's called a home business. Like
Because-
if you're a psychiatrist and you have a house in your house and people come in, so.
according to their website, they plan to make this bigger, just recently. I just read it today. To make it grow, to advertise it more,
Right,
and so on. And the other, about 3 weeks ago, there was 11 trucks
yeah.
with the motocross bikes in the back of the pickups went by my house.
You'd be fine.
I don't know how many before or how many after, but if they keep growing. Originally, it was only a couple, but it's gotten.
So talking about the earth movement, the conservation district already went and cited them on the earth movement, they do not have an NPDES permit. It was with the drainage and.
And how about sanitation
Any update
wise,
on that?
because there's a lot of people, I have the pictures that they posted. There's a lot of people up there that, they have porta johns and so on, that's a lot
That
of
would
people.
then be a
Start finding the
separate-
people that do, they'll stop coming.
So they have a lot of issues.
Okay,
But we
Well,
need
you guys
the
want-
township to back us on this. I mean, we're coming to you for help because of this, because it's ruining our home value. It's ruining,
I'm all for you.
you're ruining the animals again. I brought that up before when they wanted to put the,
And we're coming to you, I'll say, let's figure out tonight what direction we should go, because let's go forward, let's get this done.
well, that's what I want. When is his 30 days up?
November 2nd.
November 2nd?
Correct, sorry,
Okay.
he was served on October 2nd, that's when we got the receipt back.
Right,
So the 30 days starts from that point.
okay. And can you, tell what that actually was for? What you gave to him that he needs to comply?
Sure, yeah, he's operating an illegal business, so he has to stop.
So that's
at the
what
end
you
of the-
sent him.
Correct, that's what the zoning officer.
Sent it.
Correct,
But being, excuse me a minute, but being it is an R1,
yes.
okay? He can't have that business there at all, right?
That is the very nature of the violation, so that's what we sent.
Okay, but how did you get this far to begin with that he got in there and started all this? Illegally.
Illegal,
Until
correct.
someone complains, man, no one is gonna be able to do anything.
Oh, no, I know, that's why we're here, because we're tired of it, you know, guys doing it illegally.
But now the.
Yeah, he's collecting money where he says he's not a profit, so right there. he's-
Hold on.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Any of those things that deal with, his business practices, all of that stuff has to be handled elsewhere. That's the Department of Revenue, that's the Department of State with licensure and whatnot. The thing that the township or that the zoning officer filed the enforcement notice on is that he is operating a business illegally in the R1 zone.
Right,
But he's entitled to the presumption of innocence. The township has the burden of proving that it's an illegal business. So very simply, the type of business that he has is not listed in, as a permitted use in the schedule of district regulations. That is the violation. I believe very strongly that we can prove that it's not allowed. But if he, appeals that, then he would have to go to the zoning hearing board when they would have to hear an entire case. So the same way that we would hear like a conditional use or something like that,
right,
he would have the burden then of saying, okay, the zoning officer is wrong, and the zoning officer would say, no, I'm correct. So, and then they would have a time to be able to decide that. They could decide it in that instant, but if they did not, they have 45 days, I think it is, Ron, to issue a written determination on that. And from then, that would be acted upon either by us, because if we disagree with the zoning hearing board, we have to take them to court, and then it goes to the Court of Common Pleas, not the district judge. But then if we were to prevail there at the Court of Common Pleas, then we go back to the district judge and impose the fine, and that's where the discretion on the fine is. So that's why this is so burdensome, and that's where it's going now. We're trying to write a new ordinance that deals with the noise, but fundamentally, this is what would happen with any illegal business in any zone. So that's the distinction.
But bear in mind that so far he hasn't filed an appeal that we know of to the zoning hearing board. And if he does, we hear about it, you're gonna hear about it too.
Yeah,
Yes.
you know, on the tax rolls, it's also listed as recreational and resort on his tax records. Does that do anything?
To my knowledge, that's the classification under the assessment.
As far as I've learned, that has nothing to do
Yeah.
with zoning, that has to do with
Oh,
the tax structure from
100%.
the county.
Correct. That just deals with assessment.
I have a question. So I notified you that I called the conservation district
Yes.
and they said they only give recommendations, even though they have these violations. I said, you found these violations, he's down there working on the property, how can I enforce this? We just give recommendations. He can work on that property as long as he doesn't create more tracks. And he's creating.
Right, so there's a difference.
What are they there for?
The conservation, so that everyone can basically do a lot of things with their own property if it's under 1 acre of earth disturbance. And clearly over there, it's one mess. So that's why they were cited for not having an NPDES permit, which is like a National Pollutant Discharge Environmental Standard, I think. Elimination system. So that deals with like not allowing any sort of particulates to get into water sources, to not contaminate. So they don't have any plan at all for that. So the conservation district cited them on that. But they generally give them the ability to voluntarily comply before they pursue anything more. And so the conservation district, by delegation of the Commonwealth, is empowered to enforce any regulations by the Department of Environmental Protection. So
Okay,
that's
so I
the
told
controversy.
her, you know, she said he can work on it as long as he's trying to fix these. I got off the phone and I thought, by the time they were there and they looked at it, he's already added on these other trails. Should I call them back and say, you
Absolutely.
didn't look at this part?
Absolutely, absolutely.
I know, well, I said, well, if you're not gonna do anything, why are you here? Well, your township just doesn't want to hear you, so they're sending you over here. So
Well, that's,
that you are responsible for it, and I thought, you're responsible, they said they can't shut it down, and I said.
correct, they cannot shut things down, but they do have the absolute responsibility to enforce those environmental standards. But those are separate from the zoning, so there's like a million ways this operation is problematic. One of which
They're
is.
still letting him work on it without that permit.
Correct, the conservation district generally does not go in and like, they don't board up a place, they really, John, I don't think they do that, I've never seen that happen.
They move slowly. You think this is slow?
So you can call tomorrow and they'll be there. in 2
Absolutely, and
weeks.
we don't
Yeah.
get copies of the reports that they file, because they do them right on their iPad, they check which violations they have, and then they sign it. We all get copied on that, the whole township, the township staff gets copied on that, so we get those reports and we're kind of big, because believe me, there's more issues that go on with, illegal earth moving than just this. But that's one example. So they don't have an NPDES permit.
Okay.
Maybe I'll be a separate issue, so I don't mind, I'll ask personally, the sewage enforcement officer. With regard to that, he can investigate that, that's also per DEP regulations. But there's more discretion that our sewage enforcement officer would have.
Is it better, I mean, I'm going to complain, but is it better for you,
Well, I
for the
mean,
township to put in and say he added, or?
well, I would say for you, the conservation district, there's no issue with you calling and me calling the same thing with our sewage enforcement officer. I just know that I can email Scott Brown and say, hey, there's some concerns that they probably. too much flow.
Well, like you said, this week, we will, the more that we.
Well, exactly, there's a number of issues, and if someone really wants to talk to the Department of Revenue and say it's illegally classified, they can do that too, but. You know, at the end of the day, we're trying to get the zoning right, and then.
Right, I didn't know what route we take on this.
And you pay a lot. Not really call them out, just take their temperature and say, and by the way, I was at a meeting last night with the township solicitor and. He was not sure exactly what you guys can do. Give him a call and tell him what's going on. See if I get a call.
Okay,
And Tammy, I will contact Scott Brown from Hanover Engineering, our sewer enforcement officer, but I think this is. A good start for the night, at least the consensus is, it seems to be that the decibel reader is important. The hours of operation are important, I think we're all pretty clear on what we all think is, you know, a nuisance versus what isn't, so now I think the next logical step is to. Hear the planning commission, see their thoughts on any of this tomorrow night, they meet at 7 p.m. And it's also on Zoom.
Will they look at it tomorrow night? I mean, it's less than 24 hours. You know?
No, it's on there, it's been on there for a bit, although I don't know if they inform.
Yeah, that's another.
But we'll let you know about that. I'll be there.
Jacob Bryan again. Under the consent agreements, I guess I came in late to that one, but I'm in agreement with all four. So let the minutes reflect that.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good. I wanted to do that while there was still public around. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries, Brian. I would say we can make that based on this knowledge. And then talk about it again on the 28th, and we'll get you a copy of this ahead of time. I believe it is doable. Looking at my friends, will be everybody's email. You have a, yes, well, we have a plan.
I'm in the process right now of uploading all of the Healthy Mind stuff. And so once that is on the website, then I will be able to switch gears and upload.
Right, well, what I'm saying is in 2 weeks, we could have before then. A draft based on this discussion, whether or not it's on the website, we will email everyone and have copies. But I think that between us and then the planning commission tomorrow, this will be enough to digest, so I'm gonna propose that we move to the next topic unless there are any final comments. So I appreciate it.
Where can I sign on my email?
Do you have the sheet today, or is it right there?
You can always email, whatever, since I want to be on my list to get the revised amendment.
Yeah.
People I know that part here.
Yeah.
That I talked to.
I want to thank everybody on this side of it to be positive. Because only if we do that can we work together and find an ordinance that we can solve this problem.
Awesome. So in the midst of that, the next topic was budget meeting dates, but seeing as we're getting into the night here, I propose that we discuss additional dates at the first meeting, which is on the 18th at 10. Robert and Ryan, do you have any issue with determining additional dates on that date?
No, that's good.
Yeah, you want that.
Okay, 10 o'clock.
Yes. Alright, and I don't have anything personally to note under the board of supervisors report, other than that, the trick or treating hours are gonna be 4 to 7. As usual. Ooh. Yeah.
Are you doing anything for the kids? All the other townships do.
We're working on things like that. So, Robert or Brian, do you have anything else you want to note for the board of supervisors report before we pay the bill?
I do not.
Anything else?
No, I don't.
Okay, well, the bills for the month or the bills for this period are $153,399.71. That includes one payroll, several invoices to Stroud and Nation Halbert, our utilities and other basic expenses, signed and striping, and then we also have some engineering and stone, and quarry bills. That's what we have. Do I hear a motion on the bill?
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Mr.
Second it.
Wildenheim,
I second it, Jacob.
Question? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Any other public comment? Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Motion by Mr. Levinheim, all second, all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned at 7:28. Thank you very much, everybody.
Yep, thank you all. Thank you. Bye-bye.